storm rolled over the empty plains of Siberia like a living thing. Professor Elena Morozov pulled her coat tighter as the train groaned to a stop beside the abandoned settlement. Snow whipped across the tracks, swallowing the world in white. Somewhere beyond the storm stood the ruins people in the nearby villages refused to speak about after dark. The locals called it the Forgotten City. But online, conspiracy forums and hidden history researchers had another name for it: Tartaria. Elena stepped off the train carrying a lantern, a recorder, and a folder filled with documents older than the Soviet Union itself. Most historians dismissed Tartaria as a misunderstanding, an old word once used on maps to describe vast parts of Asia. But Elena had spent 10 years studying strange architectural patterns, impossible engineering, and entire cities that seemed to appear in history without explanation. Buildings with gigantic bronze doors, cathedrals supposedly built by horse and cart civilizations, yet containing steel frameworks no one could explain. Massive underground tunnel systems buried beneath major cities. And then there were the photographs, pictures of cities half buried in mud, entire first floors underground, windows leading nowhere. Official records claimed it was simply changing street levels over time. Elena no longer believed that. Her guide, a thin old man named Victor, waited beside a rusted truck. "You still have time to leave," he warned in Russian. "You said that on the phone." "And I meant it." He stared toward the white horizon. "People disappear there." The truck bounced through frozen terrain for nearly an hour before the storm finally cleared enough for Elena to see it. The city emerged from the snow like a ghost. Towering domes, blackened spires, massive stone buildings stretching for miles. Not ruined, buried. Half the structures sank deep into the earth as though some ancient catastrophe had swallowed them whole. Elena's breath caught. "No one built this in the 1800s, she whispered. Victor said nothing. At the centre of the city stood an enormous domed structure, nearly the size of a stadium. Strange symbols circled the top beneath layers of ice. Elena recognised one immediately, a symbol she had found carved beneath old courthouses in Europe, inside abandoned subway tunnels in New York City, even beneath a church in Prague. A circle surrounded by branching lightning-like lines. She had once believed it was decorative. Now she wasn't so sure. Inside the dome, the temperature changed instantly. The air felt warm. Impossible. Frost melted from the walls in slow streams. Elena raised her lantern and nearly dropped it. The ceiling stretched hundreds of feet overhead, lined with copper channels and strange crystalline rods. Machines. Ancient machines. Victor crossed himself. "They use the sky," he muttered. Elena turned on her recorder. "Day 1, she whispered. "The structure contains conductive systems built directly into the architecture. Possible atmospheric energy collection." Her voice echoed unnaturally. Then another voice echoed back. Not hers. "Leave." She froze. Victor grabbed her arm hard enough to hurt. "We go now." But Elena pulled free and walked deeper into the structure. In the centre chamber stood a gigantic metallic device, shaped like a sphere suspended by rings. Faint blue light pulsed beneath its surface. Still active. After centuries. Her heart pounded as she approached it. The metal was warm. Then suddenly, the sphere came alive. A deep vibration rolled through the building. Dust exploded from the ceiling. Blue light surged through the copper lines overhead, racing through the walls like electricity, awakening veins. And for one horrifying second, Elena saw the city as it once was, the ruins transformed around her, towering, illuminated streets, airships drifting between glowing towers, people dressed in dark embroidered coats, walking beneath electric blue lamps. No smoke, no coal, no wires. The city itself generated power. Children laughed in the streets. Music echoed from enormous halls. And above the city, a black wall of clouds stretched across the horizon. Approaching, fast. Elena stumbled backward as images flooded her mind. War, not with bombs, with frequency. Massive towers firing invisible waves into the sky, buildings collapsing into the earth, entire populations vanishing beneath oceans of mud and ash. The vision shattered. She gasped and fell to the floor. The sphere dimmed again. Victor looked pale. You saw them? Elena stared at him. You knew? My grandfather told stories, he said quietly. Stories passed down after the burning. The burning? They said the Tartarians angered the rulers of the old world. They became too powerful, too connected. Elena shook her head. This can't be real. But deep down, she already knew something terrifying. History was incomplete. That night, they stayed in one of the upper chambers while the storm trapped them inside. Elena couldn't sleep. The building hummed softly around her. At around 3 a.m, she heard footsteps, slow, heavy, coming from below. She grabbed the lantern and followed the sound down a spiral staircase buried beneath layers of dust. The deeper she went, the warmer the air became. Then she found the door. Unlike the rest of the city, this door looked untouched by time. Black metal, no rust. Strange symbols glowing faintly across its surface. And from behind it, voices. Hundreds of them, whispering. Elena pressed her ear against the metal. The whispers stopped instantly. Silence. Then one voice spoke clearly in English. You were not meant to find us. The door slowly began to open on its own. Inside was darkness so deep it looked alive. Her lantern flickered violently. And in the blackness, shapes moved, tall figures with pale eyes reflecting the lantern. Light, human, but not entirely. One stepped forward. Its clothing looked centuries old, yet untouched by age. We survived, it said calmly. Elena could barely breathe. You're Tartarians? The figure tilted its head. That is not what we called ourselves. Behind them, enormous machines pulsed beneath the underground city. Engines larger than buildings still humming after hundreds of years. How is this possible? Elena whispered. Your world forgot us, the figure said. That was intentional. It walked closer. You believe your civilization is the first advanced world. It is not. The walls trembled. Far above them, something roared across the sky. Aircraft. Modern aircraft. The figure looked upward slowly. They found this place. Suddenly, alarms erupted throughout the underground chamber. Red light flooded the darkness. Victor came running down the stairs in panic. Military, he shouted. They're here. A deafening explosion shook the dome above. Dust rained from the ceiling. The pale-eyed figure looked at Elena with something almost like pity. You must decide now, it said. Tell the world the truth. Another explosion thundered overhead. Or let history bury us again. The idea of Tartaria itself comes from real historical maps and references to regions across Central and Northern Asia. Historians generally agree it was a broad geographic label used by Europeans for lands inhabited by various groups, including Mongol and Turkic peoples. Not evidence of a secret, advanced civilization. A lot of modern online theories claim Tartarians had advanced technology, giant cities, free energy systems, or that history was deliberately erased after a worldwide mud flood. Those ideas are part of internet conspiracy lore and speculative fiction, rather than accepted historical evidence. This happened 100 years ago, not so very long ago. And if it's true, what if Tartaria was real? The lost civilization they say history erased, the forbidden city beneath the snow, entire cities buried beneath the earth, massive buildings no one can explain, and old maps showing a civilization history claims never existed. What if the world before ours was far more advanced than we were told? And what if evidence of that world is still hiding in plain sight? In the 1700s and 1800s, maps across Europe labelled enormous portions of Asia as Great Tartary. Today, historians say it was simply a regional name. But online researchers believe something far stranger. They claim Tartaria was not just a place, but a lost civilization. A civilization erased from history. One allegedly possessing advanced architecture, impossible engineering, and technology far beyond its time. Sounds impossible. But the deeper people dig, the stranger the evidence becomes. Here on Ghostly Whispers, we explore the stories hidden beneath history, the unexplained, the forgotten, and the mysteries that refuse to stay, buried. So if that sounds like something you'd want to uncover with us, subscribe, and let's step into the mystery. Why were these windows underground? Who built structures this massive? And why do so many cities share the same strange design? But the strangest part of the Tartaria mystery may not be the buildings themselves. It may be the possibility that an entire chapter of human history was intentionally erased. Maybe Tartaria was nothing more than an old geographic term. Or maybe, scattered across our cities, hidden beneath layers of concrete and time, fragments of a forgotten world still remain, waiting to be noticed. Entire cities appear to be buried beneath modern ground levels, windows that sit below street level, doors that open into the earth, and structures that look partially swallowed by soil and time. Some researchers believe this isn't just poor urban planning or changing street levels. They believe it points to something far more unusual, a global event, a so-called mud flood. The mud flood theory suggests that at some point in history, large parts of the world may have been covered or buried by a massive layer of mud, sediment, or debris. According to those who study it, this could explain why older buildings appear partially underground, why entire first floors seem missing, and why certain structures look far too advanced for the era they're officially assigned to. Mainstream historians reject this idea. They argue there is no evidence of a global flood event of this kind. But online researchers point to something they say is harder to dismiss: the architecture itself. This is where another mystery begins to overlap with the mud flood theory. What if these buried buildings, the ones partially submerged beneath modern cities, were not built by the civilizations we credit them to? What if they were part of something older? Something that existed before a global catastrophe changed everything? But the strangest part isn't just the buildings. It's how similar these buried structures appear across different continents, as if something affected multiple parts of the world at the same time. And why would they do this? In alternative history circles, one theory keeps coming up again and again: a global event, sometimes called a reset or a mud flood, that allegedly changed everything. Supporters of this idea believe that before modern history as we know it, there was another world, and that world was destroyed. One of the most repeated claims in this theory involves children. After this supposed event, it's said that large numbers of children were left behind. Orphans, everywhere. According to believers, this is why historical records suddenly show massive orphan populations in the 1800s. Orphanages, foundling homes, entire systems built to house children with no parents. And in this interpretation, those children were the survivors of a world that no longer existed. But the theory doesn't stop there. It also focuses on the rise of large asylums during the same era. Massive institutions filled with people labelled as mentally unstable. In the conspiracy narrative, these weren't just medical facilities. They were said to be places where survivors of the old world ended up. People who allegedly remembered things that didn't match the rewritten version of history, cities that didn't exist anymore, a world they claimed had been erased. And according to believers, instead of being heard, they were institutionalized. When combined, the theory forms a single story. A global catastrophe destroys an older civilization. Children survive in large numbers, becoming orphans. Some adults survive with fragmented or forbidden memories. And institutions rise to contain both groups: orphanages for the children, asylums for the adults. And above them, a rewritten version of history begins to form. Supporters of this theory often point back to architecture: buildings that appear partially buried, streets that look like they were raised over time, and structures that seem too advanced for their assigned timeline. To them, these aren't coincidences. They are remnants of the world before the reset. But whether these patterns point to a forgotten civilization or simply misunderstood history remains unanswered. And that is why the Tartaria mystery continues to spread. Because once you start looking at the past this way, it becomes harder to unsee the questions it raises. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.